We will now start the webinar.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jorge Duran, and I am the Chief of the Secretariat of the Inter-American Committee on Ports of the Organization of American States. And I'd like to bid you all welcome to this seminar, to this webinar, really, dealing with the port community system in action from development to implementation. And this time is reloaded. So everyone is welcome. We're doing this reloaded version because during the first iteration of this great event, we had severe technical difficulties that required for us to do it. Plus, there was a demand from the audience sending us some communications asking to please do this again because they were very, very interested, and we had a glitch in the audio on that occasion. So again, welcome to this event. We are very, very proud to again announce our alliance, our exchange of memberships with the International Port Community System Association, known for its acronym as IPCSA. Welcome to the SIP community. IPCSA, of course, as its name implies, works with ports and terminals and members who are either developing or have implemented a port community system. Now, this is very, very important because in Latin America and in the Caribbean, most of our ports are, in fact, trying to digitize and to automatize their processes in a way that makes them more efficient, that makes them more competitive. And of course, the pinnacle of that is the port community system, the PCS, as it's known by its acronym. So today, we will have three presenters in addition to my very good friend Hans Ruck, the chairman of the International Port Community Systems Association, who I shall give the floor to next. But I wanted to briefly introduce John Mine as the executive coordinator for ProComex in Brazil, who will be presenting sort of the basis of a PCS, sort of what is it that you need in order to embark upon PCS. And then John will be followed by Gadi Ben Moshe, and Gadi is the CIO of Israel Ports Development and Assets Company, obviously in Israel, and he will be talking about a technological and community challenges and needs of a PCS. It is important to say that all the speakers have had the opportunity to do this webinar reloaded, which means better, because we had the first experiences and some of the questions that they asked served to hone the presentations. And then we will talk to Kevin Gibson, who is the port analyst at Port St. Martin in the Caribbean, about the actual implementation of the PCS. And this will be followed at the end by a discussion with all the speakers, and Hans, of course, is invited. And I would also like to say my hellos and give thanks to Mr. Richard Morton, the secretary for the IPCSA, as well as the SIP team. So without further ado, you're all welcome. I'm happy to see that we have a good participation starting just now. I see people I know in the thing. I'd like to welcome Benoit Bardoul, for instance, for the Port Authority of in the Caribbean, and in Latin America and in South America, Central America. I see people from all over the region. You're all welcome. Thank you very much for coming. We hope that we have something very informative for you. So without any further ado, let me give the floor to Mr. Hans Ruck. Hans is the chairman of the International Port Community System Association, as I've said, our new associate members and partners. So Hans, my friend, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Jorge, for the introduction given. So I need not to say any more that I'm the chairman of IPCS. That makes it easy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Also from my side, I'm very pleased and honored to be in contact with you to introduce you into the world of port community systems and those single windows. Port community systems with a wide spread of install base all over the world, but strange enough, not in the Americas. When taking the SIP members into account in this respect, I can count the install base on the fingers of one hand. I'm very happy that the Inter-American Committee of Ports and IPCSA have found each other, both having the same drive, support the Port Authority in achieving the best solution on trade facilitation in their ports. IPCSA specifically focus on PCS and single window operators and port authorities globally. Our task is to ensure recognition as an NGO on various international levels like UN, IMO, WCO, etc. To promote use of standards, encourage members to be proactive in PCS and single window developments, promote international collaboration, and support and promote trade facilitation. During the pandemic, more and more ports have seen the necessity to move from paper-based information exchange to digitalization. Where in the last decade, ports asked for investigations, whether a PCS or single window would be an option. These days, it is not anymore an investigation whether, but just when can a PCS be installed in my port. This webinar will introduce you into the world of port community systems. Port community systems that have proven all over the world to be positively contribute to trade facilitation. Better port performance, less dwell time, maturity of data, better planning possibilities, and many more options to enhance your trade facilitation to yourself, your port customers. Real added value to your port. IPCSA and its members play a vital role in the global trade facilitation. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not longer talk from my side. I will hand over the mic again to Jorge Ortomona, who will be the moderator of today and introduce you to our speakers and lead the discussion session after the presentations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you very much. I think that you've added a layer of complexity and sort of detail to both the PCS and IPSA that needed added. So thank you very, very much. Indeed, the port community systems and the technological solutions to make the job of the ports more efficient, more saving costs, saving time, yet increasing efficiencies and just-in-time operations and so forth. The digitalization of our processes is of the utmost importance. And I always tell people, it's not about digitizing the papers that you now have. It's about redesigning the process of which those papers are a result from, so that you have a different approach to it. But instead of me trying to explain it, why don't I turn it over to our first speaker for the day, Mr. John Mine. John, as I said earlier, is the executive coordinator of Procomex Brazil, and he will speak to us about some of the necessary elements that are needed to develop a port community system. So with that said, John, mate, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Jorge, and thank you, Hans and
Obrigado,
Richard.
Bernardo, tudo bem?
Obrigado. Eu vou falar em inglês, tudo bem? Is it all right if I speak in English, or would you prefer? You prefere que eu fale em português?
Para mim, igual, mas agora em inglês, por favor.
Okay. All kidding aside, it's a great pleasure and an honor to be invited to this webinar, and I'll talk about some of the elements that we believe are necessary to think about a port community system. But I would first like to explain who we are. Procomex is a not-for-profit, which is an alliance of 118 business associations nowadays that have the same vision that Brazil can, or the countries in which we operate, can be more competitive if we have more efficient and reliable customs and logistic processes. Procomex was founded in 2004. It's totally apolitical and a civil initiative. And as I mentioned, has 118 business associations that are part of it today. We thought that in 1 year we would be able to attain this objective, but it took us 1 year even to talk to customs. So it became very obvious very quick that we needed to have an operational arm that had a structure. And so the Procomex Alliance Institute was created in 2005, and it is the operational arm that provides the platform for the interaction between the private sector and the public sector on the various issues that we work on. We are based on basically 3-footstool, which is the associations, which give us the representation of the private sector, the companies which provide us with the specific knowledge of how things really operate. Association people have the right speech, but they really don't know the day-to-day. So we need the knowledge from companies that operate on the day-to-day, and they also help finance the effort. And then a government that's willing to change. And we work with all of these 3 elements to bring about change. And today specifically, I want to talk about the Brazil Trade Facilitation Project, which is a project that is sponsored by the it's sponsored by was sponsored by the Prosperity Fund, and now by the Foreign Office of Great Britain. It has its objective of decreasing poverty in developing countries, and this specific project has the objective of increasing the efficiency of 4 Brazilian ports, the ports of Santos, Suape, Rio de Janeiro, and Itajaí, and developing the community, reviewing the processes, and implementing a pilot of the PCS in the Port of Santos. The general contractor for this project is Palladium, which is an organization that is originally based in Australia, but has offices in the US and in Great Britain. And we have as partners within this alliance under the Palladium umbrella, the University of São Paulo and Hamburg Port Consulting. Just to give you an idea of the importance of ports in Brazil, Brazilian's coast is almost 11,000 kilometers long. There are over 30 public ports and over 20 private ports in Brazil, and we are working specifically in 4 of them. In the Port of Santos, which is the largest port in Brazil, which is in the state of São Paulo, that is highlighted in this slide. And then we have the Port of Rio de Janeiro, which is in the city of Rio, and in the Port of Suape, which is in the state of Pernambuco, near the city of Recife. And then we have the Port of Itajaí in the state of Santa Catarina. So we have varying ports with different types of cargo and different types of ownership even of the Port Authority. The Port of Santos is owned by the federal government. The Port of Suape is managed by the state government. The Port of Itajaí is managed by the municipal government, and the Port of Rio de Janeiro, I'm talking about the port authorities, are managed by the federal government also. The objective of this project is to increase efficiency, to make Brazil more competitive, and by making it more competitive, then the country will be able to attract investment and develop jobs and consequently develop and decrease poverty. Now, how can you make the port more effective? On the slide I'm showing you right now shows the amount of days that was registered in a recent study, a time release study based on the World Customs Organization methodology that was done in Brazil. And so the time of entry and departure of ships is on average 2.5 days in Brazilian ports, actually the Port of Santos, and 5.7 days for the entry of the cargo unloading, and then 4.2 days for the goods to leave the port proper. So the only way we can make the port more efficient is if we change the processes. As George alluded to, if we only digitalize the processes, we will not increase the efficiency of the port sufficiently. So how do we do this? Well, we are doing it by co-creating with the members of the port community themselves. And the first thing that was done was to set up a governance group with representatives of each one of the stakeholders in each one of the ports. So each one of the 4 ports has a local governance group, which defines the priority of which processes we should look at first and try to redesign first. Then we work with representatives of the community who are the people who really operate on the day-to-day in each one of these processes to redesign the processes. The first group decides what we do and how the business will be run when it's set up, the port community is set up. And the second one decides, actually provides the input for designing the processes as they are now, and then redesigning the processes to gain efficiency. And we also have a national governance group because all the existing foreign trade systems that exist, and even the existing systems from the port secretariat are national in nature. So we need a national group to make sure that we can interface with these national systems, that national policy can be changed to effectively make it possible to implement the port community system in each one of the port communities. Now, we talk about port community system, and then the whole emphasis becomes on the system itself. And that is critical, that's important, that's what needs to exist at the end. But unless you work on the governance of this, unless you work with the community to form a community instead of individuals competing with each other, but a community willing to share information, and then you redesign the processes using the knowledge of that community before you start a system, the system won't be as efficient as it has the potential for being. We have a specific challenge this year because usually we do the process mapping to redesign systems with presential meetings where we meet everybody in a big room. We put a big piece of paper, craft paper on the wall, and we use Post-its to register each activity that happens in the process, and then to discuss with the group what are the problems or opportunities for improvement. And then based on that, we do a new map, which is a to-be map of how the process should be. But this year, because of the pandemic, we had to do all this virtually. So this is a register, not only of the governance group meetings, but also of the mapping process. And on the left bottom side, you'll see an entire map. It's obviously you can't read what's on there because it is a very large map. It is an enormous map. Okay. And every one of the items that is on there, every one of the activities on there was done by members of the community that are actually operate in each one of these ports. Okay. And what the first results for the first year is that we redesigned some macro processes for the port of Suape, Rio de Janeiro, Santos. The choice of the governance group was that we designed the vessel arrival and departure. And so that was what done. For the Port of Itajaí, they wanted a more specific, because they had a specific problem with regard to selection for inspection and seal verification. The macro process 2, which is the inbound end-to-end cargo management at the port, we're actually done that for all of the 4 ports. And that, by the way, is becoming an input to the cargo management system of the Brazil single window system, okay? And then the macro process 3, which is the outbound end-to-end cargo, was done for the port of Suape and Santos. Now, just to give you an idea, in terms of vessel arrival and departure for port of Rio de Janeiro, Santos, and Suape, are as-is mapped, listed in the 3 ports, 968 activities. That's how things operate today. And as we redesigned with the community, we decreased the number of activities by almost 40% to 594 activities. Came up with 378 solutions to existing problems. And we identified 223 activities that will be part of the new PCS. and 86 interconnections with the existing systems that exist in Brazil for managing trade in Brazil today. And a similar amount of effort was made with regard to inbound cargo and management of the port with similar numbers. Okay, during the first year we held 150. I have
John,
3
apologies
minutes
for my interruption. Just to remind you, you have five more minutes left, mate.
Thank you, my friend. By my clock, I have 3 minutes and 15 seconds. But anyway.
Well, you just got an extra 2.
we held 158 meetings in these 4 communities with over 630 hours of time invested by the members of the community and our staff. We redesigned 10 macro processes, came up with 20 maps. And we have done is the as is and the to be map. There are 2 more steps that are involved in this process. And that is we'll have a joint to be where the private sector meets with the government agencies that also operate in the port to make sure that we all have the same vision in terms of what should be done, because some of the systems that the government operates will also have to be changed to adapt to the PCS. We had over 700 participants in these meetings, and we came up with close to 1,000 different solutions for the 4 ports. And this is just an idea. It's a graphic of what we're imagining, that we'll have port community systems at a local level, but we also have to have a national system that integrates these because of the integration with the existing national systems that are already in existence and have already been developed. Brazil started off with single window instead of the PCS. Several countries in Europe had PCSs before they had the single window, but because of the ownership structure of the ports in Brazil and so forth, the tendency was not to develop PCSs, but the federal government developed the systems to control cargo and customs management. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. And George, I had 1 minute and 20 seconds left.
Ótimo, John. Muito obrigado. Que gentil. Thank you, my dear friend, for doing not only a wonderful job of the presentation, but indeed within the allotted time. I find this PCS thing very, very interesting, and I must just make a couple of comments on your presentation. Obviously, it is clear from what you presented that a port community system, it is intended to make the port of the community more efficient, more competitive. Digitizing, we both agree, is not enough. We need to redesign the processes themselves in order to make them more efficient, in order for them to save time and money. And I thought that the basis of it, of how you in Brazil or how you are doing it with the participation of the government entities, of the private sector, of that tri-alliance that you mentioned, with and then having representatives of these groups sitting in order to move ahead together as a community. I think this is very, very important for all those ports listening to us, that this must not be done by one actor or by one port or by one but it is actually the result of a consensus between the government and the private sector in order to move ahead. Evidently, your charts with or slides, as they call it, with the less activities, the more efficiency, the 40% on the average that you saved in activities and processes make, in fact, though the numbers do not lie, the data is hard and it's there, and we can see the benefits of implementing a digital system. It's very important that you pointed out, and I'd like to place emphasis on that, that a PCS and a single maritime window are not the same thing at all.
No.
And that they can be pursued independently, parallelly from each other in the different things, the single window and the port community system. So perhaps
I say a couple
Gadi
more things, George? Can I take up my
Yes, please go ahead and clarify. Indeed.
Okay. The port community system is a system where the private sector needs to share information. That's the basis of it. But the private sector actually in the public sector, but In Brazil, it's going to be a private sector system, okay? And for people to share information, they got to trust each other. So part of the result of this work of working together with people in the community is so they have a chance to get to know each other better. They understand each other's needs and problems, and can start to trust each other. Because without a basic building block of trust, it's almost impossible to put a port community system together.
Right, right, indeed. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that it is time now for me to introduce my good friend, Gadi Ben Moshe. I say his name with a Latin accent because he's, of course, fluent in Spanish. Gadi, as you know, is the Chief Information Officer of Israel Ports Development and Assets Company in beautiful Israel. And he will talk to us a little bit about the technological and the community challenges that he faced when he was trying to put in a port community system in Israel. So, Gadi, my friend, you have the floor. Adelante, hermano. Tienes la palabra.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Jorge, very much. And buen día a todos. And I'm happy to share with you our experience in building a PCS, mainly in the challenges and needs in the technology and the community part. But first, let me tell you a few words about the Israel Ports Company. In Israel, 99% of the Israeli import and export is by sea. So we see a great importance in making a better and a more efficient maritime supply chain. And our company, this is our goal. And we do it by developing the Israeli seaport infrastructure, the physical one and the digital one. And the digital activity is by developing the Israeli port community system. Today, the majority of the processes in the Israeli maritime supply chain are digital and paperless. We also worked very closely because the trade is not stopped in Israel, the trade is international. And therefore, it's very important to have the international connection. And for that reason, we are members of the IPCSA, the International Ports Community System Association, since its beginning, since 2011. So my colleague here before me, John, talked about the importance of technology, community, and what is more important. Yes, I agree with him. The community, this is the important thing when building a PCS. And what we need is to bring together the community, and we have to bring the government side and the business side of the community. And because there are a lot of players there. And the way that we did to try and bring all of those players together to sit in the same round table, it's by putting the regulators at the front, because today the head of our steering committee are the Shipping and Ports Administration of Israel and also the Israeli Customs. And in that way, we can push a lot of things because they are an essential part of the maritime supply chain in Israel. What our company does in the PCS is we develop, we operate, and we integrate the port community system, and also we fund the port community system. But the important thing, as I said before, it's the ecosystem, building the ecosystem, bringing them together. And for that reason, we have a working group that has a monthly meeting, that has a monthly meeting. We raise their problems. Sometimes those problems are solved only by coordinating the way of work of all the ports of Israel. And sometimes the solution is a technical solution. Part of this technical solution is done by us, by developing the PCS services. But part of the solutions are also some solutions that one of the players has to do. One difference that we see in the Israeli port community system than other PCS in the world is that the use of the port community system for the end users is without additional cost. And the reason that we can do that is because we as a government-owned company, we receive taxes for the import and export from Israel ports. And we use these taxes to develop the physical infrastructure, but also to develop our PCS. And that's the reason. And it helps us a lot, of course, because it's no brainer to the users to enter, to connect, and for that it helps us a lot. Another thing that we believe that is very important is to be meaningful, but to be transparent. And I'll show you one example. For example, the container status that is in the Israel ports website, you can see also container status in the port of Haifa website, and also in the port of Ashdod website. Nobody knows that behind that, there is the same service that we, a PCS, provide. For us, it's not important that somebody will visit our website. The importance is that everybody sees the same one truth. And I may quote our late president, Shimon Peres, that said that accomplishment matters more than credit, popularity, and title. And this is our motto. And I think that it's very important to keep on doing that. Another issue that we have to address is to make the solutions custom-made according to different end users that we have, different customers. First of all, there are the big enterprises. For them, we have EDI message brokers, API services, and also some online services that we need. But what about the SMEs and late adopters? They need a different solution. A truck company having only one truck needs another solution than a big truck companies or transport company that has hundreds of trucks. And for that reason, we want to promote also the small companies. And for that reason, we give online services for these late adopters or SMEs that they can act exactly like a big company. And the information that is received at the port is the same information. They don't feel like it came from a big enterprise or a small one. Also done some format translation that we have to do. Our customs years ago came with a new WCO standard system. And one day they wanted all of our community to do development to be adapted to the new system. But we understand that we can't do it such a change in one day, and we help mainly the small companies by format translation from the old DDIs to the new XML WCO services. And it seems that what we do is getting these results, and the numbers speak by themselves. We have today in our PCS about 2,000 companies, about 4,000 end users, and a huge amount of data, about 7.5 million messages per month, and keep on growing. We have to also see, because a lot are talking about the pandemic, and hopefully all the world is start seeing this end, but it helps us in the supply chain digitalization. Because the digitalization of the maritime supply chain processes and PCS, its enablers are now considered more critical by a wider range of stakeholders. There is less resistance to change, to new methods of working. What the world understand this COVID-19 situation help us all understand that we have moved forward the digitalizations. So all the projects are receiving more priorities and more support from the governments. But other things that we also learned is that collaboration for better supply chain visibility is needed. And you must think about that it's difficult to instantly digitalize a process during a crisis. A lot of people say, okay, now we have a problem. Nobody can go to give some documentations. Let's digital this document today. No, it can't be done in one day. So now, hoping that the world is getting out of the crisis, we have to digitalize and work hard now to digitalize all the processes that are still paper-based. So we want to talk about technology, innovation. What I think about that is, it's a tool, not the goal. And we are looking constantly for improvements and new solutions powered by technology and innovation. But again, the technology and innovation is not our goal. Our goal is to give better service or give new services that we didn't give till today. Looking on that, we believe that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of standardization in our field and a number of standardization bodies that are working on that, like IMO, IAPH, UN, CEFAC, ISO, and so on and so forth. And we are actively participating on those efforts to standardize, because standardization can help us a lot. And also working with companies that support startups. It's something that is important to do, because innovation in our field is very important. It can help us. So we help accelerators and investors to work with those startups. And cooperations with universities. There's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of hunger to explore this maritime field, and we support that and work with that. So let's talk about some specific technologies. Blockchain is one of them, and in the trade, in a very interesting paper that was released recently by TFG and WTO, sorry, about blockchain in trade. The projects that are today still, even though that the blockchain is on our mind a number of years, but mainly in trade finance, the letter of credit, there's a number of projects. In shipping and logistics and supply chain, in traceability, a number of projects, and also in digitalization of trade documents. And one initiative that Israel Ports Company with IPCSA are running is the IPCSA Blockchain Bill of Lading initiative. And we are doing that together with the network of strategic networks that works about the traceability in the global traceability. So other technologies that we have to look, of course, it's AI, but mainly we have to start working on that now, because the autonomous vessels and vehicles and the IoT will keep on bringing us a lot of information. And without AI, we won't be able to handle so much information and to do the best from this information, take the best from this information. But the thing is that more digitalization, more digital solutions, more dependency in technology, as it some downside in some way, and it's the cyber risk that is rising because of that. So we have just to be aware. It don't have to stop us doing that. We have to be aware to take cyber risk into account. Cyber is in the design of our solutions, of our architecture, and so on. And this is very important. So if I can show you what, in my mind, what maritime supply chain digitalization will bring. It's from a long queue of trucks to no trucks waiting in the gates of the port, and from a lot of ships waiting outside the port to all the ships being served. What is the wish list to build the PCS? As for me, these are the topics. To be the trusted network for process harmonization and integration, to be the gateway to government authorities, the bridge between different technology adoption levels and the gateway for local and global network. So, but wishing it's not enough. And to get what you wish for, you have to work hard. And I hope that you will start working hard to get your PCS because it's worthwhile. And I'll be happy to give more information and to help in what we can. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, to you.
Toda, Gadi, toda. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you very, very much for this presentation. Again, presentations are wonderful. It's hard for me as the moderator of this session, and I must apologize to the audience that Mona Swoboda is not doing this time around. It is unfortunately for you all my job, so you will have to put up with me for the next few more minutes. Thank you, Gadi. Again, it is very important to know how Israel, I mean, obviously 99% of everything that comes into the country comes through the Mediterranean, through the ocean, through the sea. This is particularly important and relevant and makes us understand the effort that Israel has put in becoming more efficient and being technologically relevant. And this leads me to three take homes, I think, that you said. First of all, there is no need, everyone, to reinvent the wheel. If you're thinking about digitizing your processes, if you're thinking about starting a single window or a PCS, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can approach us. We will turn you on to people that know about it. And these are processes that are implemented all over the world, from Southeast Asia to Africa to the Caribbean to Europe and everywhere. And what you need to do is see how they did it and then adapt it to your particular situation. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Secondly, and you said this, Gadi, and I'm going to say it again, technology itself is not the objective. Technology represents a means to an end. Your objective is not to get the technology, but to use the technology as a tool for your real objective, which is, of course, to become more competitive, to become better, to offer more services, and to be a better company in that sense and save money and be more cost efficient. So that is your objective, not the technology itself. And a lot of us sometimes lose sight of that and think that, getting the software and getting the technology is what we have to do. And finally, I think his third most important point was, as you begin to design this, and please, this is very, very important, the cyber risk, the cyber security component becomes crucially important. And you cannot just patch that later and say, oh, we forgot in the design of our PCS, we forgot it, and we're not going to patch it up. You have to, from the very beginning, consider the two elements, the cyber, sort of the cyber security part of it, and the cyber risk part of it, which are two different things. One is a technological tool, the other one is an insurance with some companies. So as you move into digitization, keep these things that Gadi said in mind, that technology is not the end itself, it's a means to an end, that there is no need to reinvent the wheel, and that as you do this and you obviously become more efficient, avoid possible human errors by digitizing and automizing, you will also encounter new threats and new challenges, and these will be digital. So thank you, Gadi, very, very much. I think, I enjoyed that talk very, as you can see, very much. But I'd now like to go to our third speaker of the day, Mr. Kevin Gibson, who is, like I said, the port analyst of the port of St. Martin in the Caribbean. And we're all looking at the picture he has behind him, all wishing we were there in the beautiful Caribbean. And Kevin is going to talk to us a little more about actually the implementation of a PCS in a cruise port and in a commercial port that is of a different size that we've been talking earlier with Brazil and Israel. And it is very important that we look at this for what as an example to the region. So Kevin, my friend, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Jorge, thank you for the introduction. Good day, everyone. My name is Kevin Gibson, the analyst of Port St. Martin. I am Let me share my screen and we can get started. Yeah, so I'm the analyst for Port St. Martin. Just a little backstory of Port St. Martin. We have three pillars: cruise, yachting, and cargo. Our cruise sector, we're one of the leaders in the Caribbean in cruise. Just for a little latest news, I don't know how much you keep up with it, but we have been we're going to start home porting in June, which is a good sign since COVID-19. You know, the cruise industry has been seriously impacted, but we've been working closely with our partners, and we will be home porting in June, and hopefully this will carry out throughout the year. So yeah, that's a quick introduction on Port St. Martin. Now let's get into our PCS. So our process started even before 2019, but our IT team officially started production in 2019 of our PCS. It was to ensure that our port complied with the IMO FAL convention. However, in March 2020, after a miscommunication regarding the berthing of a vessel, it was agreed to have the PCS implementation accelerated to address the needs of the new situation. And we all know in March 2020 was when the World Health Organization issued a pandemic for coronavirus. So for us at that time, we were still accepting cruises, but it was very flexible, a very fluid situation. So every day the government officials were adjusting who could have came from what country. And if you visited this country in the past, that you were not allowed to berth. So in March, we had an incident where a vessel berth that wasn't cleared to berth, that our health officials did not clear. So being that was the case, we decided to implement the port community system, which one of the benefits of that is communication, that once one party submits documents that everyone can see and everyone can vet the information to issue approvals, and that everyone would know that the boat is or is not allowed to dock. So that was our press release in March 12 of our meetings to help implement our PCS. I'm going to give a quick presentation, just a quick video that we showed to our stakeholders when implementing our port community system.
Exciting, isn't it? Something new on the horizon. You don't know what to expect. But if it's a ship, this can pose problems. Without information, the Coast Guard, for example, doesn't know which ships to prioritize. And Customs is waiting and waiting, unaware that a ship is delayed. Upon arrival, they have to inspect everything. Did they find something suspicious? Then law enforcement has to collect stacks of paperwork. Of course, the ship on the horizon might just as well be a cruise ship, of which we don't know who's on board or who's visiting the island. And the lack of information prevents governments from planning ahead. Hold on, there's something else on the horizon. The Port Community System, a one-cloud system to which you can subscribe, and that contains all available information. Ship specifications, for example. Wow, that information doesn't add up. The system also shows when a ship arrives and which containers require inspection. Information is sent from one party directly to another. Not only here, but here as well. Sir, please step aside. And statistics can be used to support plans for the future. Like this, we all know what's on the horizon. Exciting, isn't it?
Yes, so that was our presentation that we showed to each of our stakeholders in the beginning when we were implementing and getting the buy-in for the system. So just a little bit info of our port community system. The agent or the vessel captain is vital for the process. They are the ones who submit all the necessary information in the system. And then we have security features that specifics of each document that is submitted gets channeled through the correct to the correct party. For example, only the customs agents can see the cargo manifest or high security officials, and only immigration can see certain passenger list or crew list, and so on and so forth. So here's an example of Port St. Martin's approval process. First, the call is registered in our GLS. GLS is our system, our terminal operating system. That's where all our calls is still being registered into. And then there's an automatic sync between that system and our community system. And then the agents upload and submit their calls in the PCS. Then it's verified by the various stakeholders, the health officials, the immigration, customs, the inspectorate, and the Ports Authority, of course. So here, went too fast. So here you can see how it looks for the agent. They can see all their vessels listed, and then they select on the vessel, and then they can choose to upload a document to the vessel call. And here we have our IT team did a great job in ensuring that all types of documents are listed, even including vaccination lists. We know that vaccinations now are key to even the restart of the cruise industry and the economy on a whole. So we have added that feature, and our system is very flexible that when there's new protocols or regulations that it can be updated into our system. And here's how it would look for the agent when they are waiting for approval. And this slide shows how it looks when, on our side, the stakeholder side, when we are about to approve. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see that we can grant full access, which means crew and passengers and everyone is allowed to come off, or we could say dock-in only and only have cargo operations or bunkering or fueling or those kind of operations, which is what we've been doing since the pandemic. No crew or passengers have been able to come off without more protocols or stringent measures. And if we decline a vessel call, we have a reason to have the agent to make adjustments to the documents if need be, so that they can be approved accordingly. And once all stakeholders have approved, the ship can dock at Port St. Martin. And this is key for our port community system, is the real-time notifications process. The real-time has been a huge success. The notifications has been a huge success, especially for our stakeholders such as customs. The customs agents usually, they have their times when they wait for a vessel. They have the ETA, maybe 24, 48 hours in advance, but then something happens or a change happens, and then they're left waiting, or the vessel arrives earlier than they anticipated, which could delay a vessel. So with the new measures with the port community system, these notifications help them to plan their operations accordingly, which helps with efficiency overall on a port. So obviously, when starting a new system, there's initial concerns. One of our concerns were the technological gap required to use the system. Many were fearing that it might be difficult to understand. Agents were, especially yachting agents, they were concerned that officials will not respond timely to vessels seeking to berth. In the yachting agents world, they service a more affluent community, especially here in the northeast region. We have St. Bart's and Anguilla and those neighboring islands who, in the blink of an eye, they can decide, let's come to St. Martin. And when the vessel is out here waiting, we don't want to keep anyone out too long. So that was their concern. But we have key trainings to each stakeholder, all the officials who need to approve these vessel calls. They were trained, and the agents were also trained, so that they were able to not only comply with our PCS requirements with the file convention as well, but also they're able to upload it in an efficient time without much hassle. So the feedback from our stakeholders has been positive. The Coast Guard is able to stay up to date with all expected vessels. Customs is able to look into the manifest to determine whether vessels need additional screenings. Immigration is able to vet all crew and passengers prior to their arrival. And agents have been happy because they have to upload documents or visit certain offices in person to get certain documents or permissions, but now they're able to just upload all documents electronically in one central location, which has been a plus for everyone. So the upkeep of PCS, it has been approximately 1 year since we went live, and the system is maintained by our developers and they have local support staff. Together, we established a PCS steering committee, which I am the chair of, which we comprise of all the stakeholders, and we have regular meetings, maybe every once a quarter or twice every quarter, to suggest the necessary updates of our system and to address the needs or any difficulties that they've come across. And we handle it and we make our charts and we go forward. Thank you, everyone. That was my presentation. And any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Steven. Again, an excellent presentation. I apologize. I'm trying to copy some of the questions that we've been receiving in the chat. Indeed. So thank you very much, Kevin. I'm always surprised at how, when you explain this, how simple you make it look. Like it's just, look, we just did it in a year, you know, we just sort of started on the 2019, here we are in 2021, and we've already got a year of operation under our belt. and it is in fact very encouraging for you to relate it like that, so that ports that have been present here know that this is indeed very achievable, that this is something that can be done if there's a will and a way. From your presentation, again, I think one of the things I enjoy the most is the fact that you have a mobile app in real time that keeps all the stakeholders informed of any particular problem that might arise, or indeed if things are going as planned, if things are going well. So I find that rather remarkable. And then, of course, your relationship with the Coast Guard and Customs and Immigration has to be super smooth and has to be absolutely, again, placing an emphasis, people that are watching, on getting everyone together. This is a full effort. This is not a one-actor effort, as you can see here again. So indeed, thank you all. Thank you very, very much, all of you. I'm going to ask you, all the speakers, to please come back to the screen. Indeed, there's John and now Gadi, and there's Hans and Kevin. And then it says a couple of questions that I have. Again, I'm going to ask them as I saw them come in. And all right, it says, this is a question for John, I think. It says, how do you see, John, the role of startups in developing solutions for the Brazilian ports ecosystem? Rather interesting question. It goes a little bit out of the, sort of the purview here, but I thought it was important.
Well, it's interesting that he's asked that question, because one of the ports that we're working with, which is the port of Suape, near Recife, the Port Authority is doing some work with startups to help develop the solutions that the Port Authority needs to connect to the PCS. And we'll also be encouraging startups to do the same for the other players in the port. Remember, the port community system doesn't solve all the functionalities for every one of the actors. Many actors have different types of systems, and some of them don't have systems. and someone
Right.
will need to develop systems. So the startups are finding a niche to work within the port community system exactly in the mode that I'm saying. And the Port of Swati has been a pioneer in this. And the former president of the Port of Swati, who was the president when we started working on this project, had been very involved with a group of startups which are in the city of Recife. By coincidence, the region that they're in is called Port Region of Recife, of the city of Recife. It's the oldest part of the town that's being recuperated, and so the startups are occupying some of the old buildings and recuperating those buildings. But anyway, those startups are working within the port community system will be working within the port community system in the Port of Swati in Recife. And we've actually proposed for the second year that one of the projects that we might be able to do is to roll out with having learned how to do this with the team in Recife, to roll this out to the other three ports that we're working on.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think that took care of that. I have another question, and it says, Gadi, querido amigo, I think I will ask this from you. It says, in terms of redesigning the processes, which we spoke about, how are smart containers being considered by new PCS systems to increase efficiency? That is, to accelerate the customs release.
Okay, if I understood right the question, we're talking about smart containers that,
yes, sir.
As I said before, that uses IoT to give more information about mainly in cooling containers and others. But also they are used for for knowing what happened to the port, to the container. It was open, the door was open, wasn't open. There are, talking about startups that we talked the previous question, there's also a great Israeli startup called Logino that also uses that to estimate the weight of the container. Okay. So that, as far as I know, a lot of information that the smart containers will have. And this is what I said before about this will be more information that will be integrated and added to the information that goes between the actors of the PCS. And what we need to keep on investigating, how we use also so much information and use it more efficiently, working with AI to handle such an amount of information. So this is my view on that.
This is it. So it's all then about well, obviously with the smart containers, it's the information exchange, which at the end of the day will actually reduce times. So again, I think an emphasis placed on the technology as a means to an end, not as an end by itself. Kevin, I think there might be a question here for you, mate. People want to know, how long does it take to vet all of the crew and passengers? And is this done after a free pratique, or how is this done?
Yes, thank you for that question. Well, the vetting of all crew and passengers is done by the immigration. Our system is actually in the process of being fully linked to theirs. So they have in their system, I believe they have flags of certain individuals who are on the no visit list, let's call it. And when there is an individual that has been flagged on the list, then they take their time to double check and review the information and see if any updates has been made to that person's status, and therefore banning or allowing the vessel to dock. So besides having a flagged individual on the ship, it takes a matter of minutes to screen and vet the usual persons coming in. They just check, passport information and names, make sure everything matches, and then they clear it. It's a very simple process.
Right. Right. Well, thank you. You see, I think that is a very simple process for you who are already doing it, are an expert, but I think that people really appreciate it when you actually explain things. I thought actually that short video in your presentation was brilliant because it helps the user to understand what's going on. Hans, I don't know if at this stage, mate, you have any comments or questions for any of the speakers?
No, I don't have any questions or comments to the speakers. I congratulate the speakers with their view on PCSs as well. John and Gadi and Kevin have given inside information how to work with PCSs or how to work on PCSs to get it running all over, let's say, the Americas. And I think in common, you can see through all the three presentations, the common thread is involvement of the stakeholders from the very first moment. So don't try to set up a PCS and then say to the stakeholders how to work with it. No involvement from the very beginning. John has given a presentation about how they are involved, how many meetings they have with the processes and the solutions, and the reduction of about 40% even of the processes in well, Gadi, well advanced already in Israel with the systems, and well, one of the topics at this moment was also the bill of lading, the e-bill of lading they're working on, and not only the e-bill of lading, but also our network, trusted networks, to communicate between PCSs and to exchange data for their customers in a wide range. And of course, Kevin, by coincidence, had a good solution for the government with the entrance of the vessel last year, which might have taken more time. But again, there you see that people are, well, the vessel came in, it was not allowed to, but the mindset of the people, oh, so we have to act now, we have to do something. And they got immediately the feeling that it was working as it should work. One thing I have always in mind, and that comes back everywhere you go on the globe and everywhere you look for development of PCSs, is that it's really a change of mindset. So as Gadi already says, technology and innovation, you said as well, Jorge, that it's a tool and not the goal. And I always say it's the mindset of the people. And when I was working for Portbase in Rotterdam, I passed by a high school, and on the wall of the high school says, I have to change to stay the same. And it makes you thinking, what does it mean? If you don't change, what will happen? Well, if you don't change, you will be out of business in a couple of years, because the world turns on and on, goes on, and you have to adopt new techniques. You have to adopt new ways of thinking and doing things, although the processes do not change so much, but just the way they are handled with. So yeah, it was great to have all the people online. Thank you very much for all the speakers. And of course, the audience in the background, which you cannot see, but we see the questions coming up. It's great to have them all online and to communicate about PCSs all over. And hopefully, I said in my beginning speech, I can count them on the one hand now, which have install-based PCSs, and I hope I need more than 10 fingers within a year.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you. I agree. Obviously, Hans, it would be wonderful. And I think that as we begin to wrap the webinar, there was a question that came in very related. I mean, exclusively really for John. And the question, John, if you don't mind me asking before I go, this will be the last question for you, mate, and then I'll have another one for the other two speakers, and then we'll wrap it up. But it says, could you please address briefly the PCS interoperability with Customs Receita Federal?
Yes, as a matter of fact, when I leave this meeting, I'm going to have a meeting with a team from Receita Federal that is designing the cargo control system of the single window system. And we have been asked also, because of the work with the PCS, to help to redesign the ship control system, which the Secretary of Ports has, the Porto Sem Papel, to make it part of the single window. The idea is that we will eventually have one entry. It may be a different point, but at least only one entry to all the systems, and all the systems will be integrated. They will feed into each other. And but this is a design still. This is a wish. But we're working, as I mentioned, this afternoon already with the team that is working on the cargo control system for the maritime cargo specifically, and basically introducing them to what we've done. And then later in the year, we'll be working with the team to design that system, but thinking about how it will work with the PCS. So it's a work in process. It doesn't happen overnight. It requires a lot of people getting involved and being willing to work together. And that is the secret to being able to get to the interoperability.
Right. Well, thank you. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado, John. Você é muito gentil. I would like to thank you, my friend, for your participation in this Reloaded webinar, which has indeed, I think, been more successful than the first iteration that we had. So, Gary, amigo querido, I have a final question for you. More than a question, it's perhaps a recommendation. You being familiar with Latin America, obviously, and being partly from the region, you know the developmental stage that the Latin American, sort of perhaps even more the South American region has. And as they move from the paperless single windows to a more robust technological platform, what would be your, like if you had one recommendation? People are often afraid that they need to write the software, that how much is it going to be too expensive, but I think that these concerns can be addressed. But my question goes deeper than that. Is you need to do this from a grassroots development, sort of, you know, involving all the actors and such. But what would you say, my friend?
Okay, to choose one recommendation, you give me a hard task, okay? Because I had a wish list and I put it in my presentation. But yes, I'll take your challenge and try to have one recommendation. And the recommendation is to be persistent. This is the way to go. Not to fear the change, not to fear the obstacles that will be on the way. Be persistent. That's the way to go, and it can be reached. We here, our three speakers here, are the proof that it's possible, and it does wonders.
It does wonders indeed. It does wonders indeed. So thank you. I think that you addressed a very good point, and the people are afraid of change. But like John, I mean, like Hans just said, if you don't change, you have to, just to keep up. And then today we have, you know, the trade facilitation agreement, for instance, which actually requires a lot of the transaction to be carried out purposely and digitally in order to have security. You know, so the world is moving with or without you. You know, modernity is here. People are doing it, and you better jump on this wagon, mate, or you will certainly be left behind. So thank you again, Gadi, for your participation, and John. And now I move finally to Kieran.
Yes.
And mate, we are now speaking of a different region of the world that I love very, very much. And I sort of would ask you sort of the same questions I asked Gadi, but in the terms directed to our peers in the Caribbean, the cruise ports of the Caribbean. And what would your recommendation be? I've heard the argument. They said, well, you know, the cruise line owns the terminal, and we just do this and we just that. So perhaps investing in a PCS is the cost benefit might not be there for us. So what do you have to say to them? Do you encourage them to get into this technological modernity, or what would be your advice? Your mic is out,
Yeah,
mate.
sorry.
Shit.
Yeah, my advice would be to get the PCS implemented. The benefits are how do you say unmeasurable? It's not just the efficiency, but the data that we want, the data that the region needs as a whole is it's basically priceless. It's the best thing to happen because we're moving away from the old and into the new, where data drives our intelligence. It should drive our actions. We should not be only going with our gut, but we should also have these tangible items that we can touch and say, this is where we're heading, this is where the region is moving, this is where the industry is going. And it's only the start. So everyone, I would recommend to make that start, to have a port community system, have a single window platform. It would only benefit your region and your industry as a whole.
Thank you, Kevin. I fully agree. I think that one of the slides presented, I think by John, where he had, look, we did 900 activities before this, then we redesigned it to, and in both situations, the numbers are there. They prove the efficiency. They reduce the activities in time, and ergo, increased efficiency, reduced costs, and so it's really very clear to all. Gentlemen, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say goodbye to the audience and send a final message in the order that we know: John, Gadi, and then Kevin, and then we'll take it from there to close it up, Hans and I. So, John, final message. Your mic, mate. Your mic. There we go.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you, Hans, and my colleagues, speakers, Gabi and Kevin, and thank you for the opportunity. And if we can be helpful in any other way, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be glad to follow through. And we may be able to help you, may not, but we're certainly willing to try. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joy.
No, indeed. Gadi, my friend.
Muchas gracias, Jorge, por la oportunidad de hablar en este webinar. And thank you all, and thank the speakers. I learn also from them every time that I hear them. And as John said, we are here to help others and to share our knowledge and information. So please address us with any question.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Jorge. Thank you to my fellow speakers, John and Gadi. Thank you to your organization, CIP, and the IPCSA for the opportunity. It was a pleasure once again to present, and I hope we can do this in the future in person. That would be my wish.
Yeah, in a beautiful location like your island, mate.
You're all welcome.
Seriously, seriously.
You're all welcome.
So anyway, well, thank you, and I give now the floor to Hans so that he can say a few words before I get to close.
Right, thank you, Jorge. I will not say so many things anymore. Well, everything has been said. It was a very good presentation today, good webinar. I followed the one on YouTube as well, and I know the sound was perfect this time. So no complaints from the people, I think. And you have seen the chats and the questions coming up. And one person you haven't seen, but he is in the background, it's Richard. You know Richard, he is our let's say, one of the most important parts in our supply chain when we talk about our membership. And I thank him very much every time again when he organized those kind of things, which he did now with you and with us. And we made it to have a good performance. And for those boards that are not yet a member of our family, of course, they are free to join us as a member of IPCSA, as they are from SIP at this moment already. So please don't hesitate to look at our website and to contact us and to see how we can move forward together to have your ports also optimized, digitalized in a certain way. And a word that I didn't hear so much this time, but you hear it zooming all around over the world, is about sustainability. And that's the key word these days in all kinds of webinars, the sustainability, the CO2 emission reduction, etc., etc. And that's also part of having a PCS around, where you avoid all the paperwork and have it all digitized. So thank you very much, all speakers. Thank you to the audience for having the patience to listen to us for 1.5 hours. And well, I hope to see and to hear you soon again. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Hans, and thank IPSA. Indeed, we must thank Richard Morton, who is like the Phantom of the Opera. He's there, you know he's there, you just never get to see him. But Richard, my friend, thanks to you and for your support. This is indeed, a success, I believe. Also, I'd like to thank the SIP Dream Team, Paola, Sabina, Mona, and Monse, who of course have been at it. I'd like to thank Relodaded, our technological strategic partner, and Martin Sartillan, their Director General, for their support in broadcasting this event, not only through Zoom, but also broadcasting through YouTube, where it was apparently very successful as well. We have a few dozen viewers there as well. So it's been a pleasure, gentlemen, ladies, to be here with you to share this 90 minutes of knowledge exchange. I think it's been very beneficial to all the participants that have stayed with us throughout these hour and a half. The advantages of the digitization, of moving towards a port community system, cannot be understated. Just now, when Hans was talking about the carbon footprint, well, if you think about it, being more efficient and less wait times also means less pollution. So the externalities, the benefits of having a PCS really cannot be understated. And the CIP and IPSA, as an associate member, is here to provide whatever services or advice that we can to our associate members and to our members. So in fact, the people are asking through the portal. Yes, the presentations will be available at the SIP portal. Remember, portalcip.org, portalcip.org, and they'll be available there, I'm sure, as of tomorrow. The recording of this webinar would also be available at the portal, so you can see all this again. And with that, I thank Relodaded, I thank IPSA, Richard Morton, and Hans Rook for their trust in us and their participation. This will be, ladies and gentlemen, just one of the things we'll be doing this year with them. We certainly will have another webinar in a few months addressing very similar subjects. So to our speakers, to John, Gadi, and Kevin, thank you, gents, very, very much for your wonderful dissertations on this. I think they were of interest to everyone. And with that being 12:27, I bid you all goodbye. Gentlemen, remember, we're going to be passed to another room for the moment. To the audience, to the SIP members, to the IPSA members, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure. Goodbye now, and I'll see you the next time.
Thank you, Jorge.